Today we're going to talk about one of my favorites, which is Russia and Peter the Great. So we're looking at a very, very brief history on Russia just to get some background information before we get into Peter. First up, some background. Russia itself was ruled by Mongols until 1480, and this ruling by the Mongols really allowed them to be isolated from the rest of Europe. And if you remember within seventh grade geography, you're talking about how Russia kind of spans the two continents, right? It's both in Europe and in Asia. Now, reasons for that isolation, 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. First up, reasons for that isolation is absolutely that Asian domination. So if you look, much of Russia is in Asia. And so therefore, that Mongolian influence is there and surrounding by many Asian countries versus really having that access to the European world. So that's one. Number two, we've talked about a lot of religions this year, and especially within Europe. Recently, we've been talking about Lutheran, Anglican, Calvinist, right, and Catholic, but we really haven't talked about Eastern Orthodox, and that's what Russia is going to follow. So there, again, is something that kind of separates them from the rest of Europe. Additionally, their alphabet system, the Cyrillic alphabet, will be something that's a little complex for others and again, keeps them separated. And lastly is going to be their landlocked geography. They're surrounded by a lot of strong kingdoms, Sweden in particular, Poland, the Ottoman Empire, and this is really preventing them from this inclusion into Europe by this placement of them. Now, you might say to me, well, landlocked, but I remember in seventh grade, they had this big old Arctic Ocean up at the north of them. Well, yes, that's very true. However, remember that this is a cold water port. This is an ocean that freezes and therefore does not allow for access in and out. So, but again, they are surrounded by these stronger kingdoms right around them that keep them in this landlocked status. Now, we're going to start to focus in on the Romanov dynasty. The Romanov dynasty began with Michael Romanov in 1613, and it's going to end with Nicholas II in 1917. Romanovs are one of my favorites, so we will end kind of our school year with Nicholas II during World War I. So we will actually come back to the Romanov family, and you might be familiar with him already from maybe if you've heard of Anastasia before, or in bio, oftentimes you're going to be doing a Romanov lab of some sort. Okay. Now, you're going to hear me using the word czar sometimes, or in readings, you're going to hear Peter the Great. He is going to be the ruler that we're really focusing in on today. He becomes czar in 1689, and czar ultimately is going to be the interchangeable term for king. So like when we talked about Louis XIV or Henry VIII, czar is the same. It's the Russian word for Caesar, but it does mean king. So just if you see that, just so that you're aware of what that means. So Peter the Great is a really interesting character. I thoroughly enjoy learning about him. He is very complex. He has a heart of gold and at the same time a heart full of cruelty. And you're going to get to see that in the reading later today. But he's known for his violent temper, sometimes such fits of rage that they kind of wonder if maybe he had epilepsy. He's known for his disguises. He loved to go and kind of mix with the average man. And so he would try to use these disguises to fit in. However, he was a 6'7" man with a thick Russian accent, so he wasn't always really in disguise. He was also known for his great cruelty that you'll get to hear about later. And he also was one who really wanted to work with his hands, carpentry. He really was a hands-on learner. He wanted to see how to do a skill so that he could teach it to others as well. And that's one of the qualities that makes him so admirable. Now, the letter that you're going to need to know for Peter's reign is the letter W. I encourage you to highlight it, circle it, star it, and think of it when you think of Peter the Great. Two different phrases are going to accompany this, all right? Number one, westernization. Okay, what on earth is westernization? Well, westernization is becoming more like Europe. So if you're in Russia and you're looking west, you see Europe, and that was Peter's goal. He wanted to make Russia more like Europe. He was intrigued by France and England and the Netherlands and Prussia as well. He was intrigued by all of these and really wanted to bring his outdated nation up to the standards that Europe had. Now, the second W is going to stand for warm water ports. All right, well, we talked about the Arctic Ocean already being a cold water port, and that is going to be the problem. That's what Russia has access to. And he really has his eye down south in one of the areas of the Black Sea. This is going to be something that he really strives to achieve during his goal, and he's going to go after it pretty early on. This Black Sea and this area called the Sea of Azov, by having access to this port, it would really open up a lot of trade and manufacturing opportunities for him, access to many new areas such as Istanbul, but again, into the Aegean Sea, into the Mediterranean Sea. So by controlling this area, this would be a big win for Russia. So Peter wastes no time, and he's going to go after this. And he, in 1695 through 1696, he goes after this called the Azov Campaign. And his objective was to control this region. So he has to fight against the Turks in order to do this. Well, once he's there and he's in the midst of this, he had used actually a land attack for this instead of a naval attack. And one of these things that really was exposed through this campaign was that it was a failure. In particular, he did not have a navy, and he did not have the right strategies in order to capture this. And so one of the things that he does is he actually decides he wants to learn from this. And so he goes on a European tour, which was pretty unheard of at the time for a czar or for a ruling king to actually leave during their reign, to leave the country for an extended amount of time. And that's what he did. He kind of went to study abroad. So instead of like many people do in college, he did a little bit later. Now, two of the locations that he really targeted are going to be England and Amsterdam. And if you want to build a navy, where else are you going to go to look at that besides England, right? They had defeated Philip and his armada. Elizabeth and her sea dogs had won. They kept that naval superiority afterwards, becoming that powerhouse on the waterway. So he goes there to learn. Same with the Amsterdam, some of the best shipyards in Europe, and therefore he goes. And he wakes up as early as 4 o'clock in the morning to go and learn the skill of building the ships himself. He is very hands-on in his travels. He even learns dentistry while he's there too. He's very just intrigued of all of the different things that can be there in the rest. Now, with the shipbuilding, so not only will this contribute to his naval aspirations, but this will also encourage foreign trade and manufacturing. So this will be something that's helpful to the economy as well when he can bring these skills back. And so that's, again, how he's trying to update, to modernize his country of Russia. So when he goes back, he does take these ideas, and he is known as the father of the Russian Navy. Really cool. You can actually still go to places. I was in Estonia, and I was able to see one of his original ships, which is amazing. And you could actually see all the handcraft work. And with this Navy, he ends up deciding to test it out pretty quickly, going after one of the big dogs in the area, which was Sweden. And he ends up fighting against a very prominent Sweden, but he won access to the Baltic Sea. So this was a big score for him, and it'll be used later, as we'll get to, but this will be a big win for him. But again, the father of the Russian Navy. Now, other military reforms that he does, we know that France, right, Louis XIV had made his French military up to 400,000 soldiers and had restructured his whole design. Well, Peter goes to investigate what that will be. He brings in European officers to come back with him to Russia. Prussia also has a very disciplined force, and he will study that. So he brings these ideas with him again back to Russia to modernize and make changes. Now, these are not the only changes that he makes. He also focuses on cultural changes. All right, the cultural changes. For one, women were allowed to start to take part in the community. Even upper class women were allowed to remove their traditional face covering veils. So this really kind of shook the norms of true behavior. Additionally, there would be separate entrances for men and women, and they traditionally did not mingle at different events. And now Peter is kind of pushing that envelope to be more like Europe and allowing this intermingling. Another goal that Peter took on was simplifying the alphabet to be easier for others, so that it could help with trade purposes as well. Next, he changes the calendar. Before this, the Russians had observed the New Year in September, but he switches it to be on track with Europe using the Julian calendar instead, so January 1st being the first day of the New Year. So again, to help with trade purposes. He is also a bit of a fashionista. He realizes that the Russians kind of put off this vibe of being very different in their kind of almost being backwoods compared to France, right? That everyone wanted to be like. So most of the Russians were wearing these longer traditional Eastern caftans, which it's very cold in Russia, so I could see why you'd want to wear that, right? But Peter basically says, sorry guys, no longer, suit up. You are now expected to wear the short coats like the nobles do in the rest of Europe. You too need to look like that so that we fit in, so that when there are visitors from Europe, when there are trade negotiations going on, we can set the same standard and there's a comfort level there. Additionally, he's going to attack the beards. Basically, men, shave your beards. And if you don't, you're going to pay for it. Yep, that's right. He actually taxed the beard. If you refuse to shave off your beard, you actually had to carry around this token that is here. This token to prove and to be called upon to prove that you had paid your tax and did not have to shave your beard. But Peter was known for himself trying to, some of his cruel ways. He was known for really helping some of the nobles to shave their beards, sort of by force. Additionally, education, though, just like he studied abroad, he really encouraged the idea of many of the sons of the Russian nobles to study abroad, to learn new ideas and technologies, and to bring those back to Russia to strengthen it. Now, that does not mean that everything is just A-okay in Russia. People are resistant to change, just like anywhere else. And so there are three major groups that really fought against Peter, kind of kicking and screaming into this modernization time, that were very entrenched in the way things were. They didn't want change. They were living a pretty good life, and he was rocking this boat. Now, you're going to have the boyars, who are the nobility. You're going to have the Streltsy, which are the musketeers and kind of the military force, and the Russian Orthodox Church. All of these will kind of fight against him in these changes. However, you don't really want to bet against Peter. So, ends up the military decides that they're going to have a rebellion and go against Peter. Well, what happens? It isn't so good. Their leaders, with several of their officers and priests, were condemned to death. Some were broken upon the wheel, like we talked about during the Inquisition, and 2 women were buried alive. Upwards of 2,000 of the Streltsy were executed, parts of whom were hanged round about the walls of the city. He's making a very clear example. If you want to rebel against me and my new ways, this is what will happen to you. So he's really making a statement. Now, the church decides to kind of tackle Peter's ideas head on as well. And so a little bit of background about the Russian Orthodox Church. They do not have the Pope like the Catholic Church. Instead, they are led by a patriarch. And the patriarch had not really been supportive of a lot of Peter's changes. And so they decided to do something about it. They basically led the congregation to say, no smoking. Well, why that seems very health conscious today. And you might be like, okay, well, that's good. Well, really, they did it because Peter had been importing a new crop called tobacco. All right, a very profitable new crop for Russia. But here the church was using its influence to basically block Peter's ideas. So Peter had a response. Very Henry VIII of him. He says, you know what, then I'll take over the church. And that's exactly what he did. And he said, there is no figurehead, so patriarch, bye-bye. And he also allows for Christian toleration for foreigners. Now, he himself is not going to be, a religious toleration person, but here he's realizing that if he wants to bring in these other Europeans into his world here, he needs to have Christian toleration for them. Now, the service, or the boyars, the nobility, they are also going to be really aggravated by Peter's changes. He institutes something called the Table of Ranks. Now, there are 14 different levels of rank that you can be if you are a boyar or a noble. Everyone starts at the bottom, so you're all equal. Now, if you don't really give your time and energy to your government position, then you're not going to raise very far. And some will, and some will get to the top. But it is based upon merit, okay? You were ranked by merit of how you did your job, not who mommy and daddy were, not how long you've had the job for, but instead merit. How good did you do your job? How much time did you dedicate to Russia and to the government and to this job? And so therefore, this is going to really make a lot of people angry. In fact, He even changed the rules so that property of all landowners became hereditary instead of dependent upon their service to the Tsar. And in all of his appointments, he chose the most talented candidates, regardless of their level in society. He always wanted the best man for the job. Now, one of his final claims to fame is going to be his namesake city, St. Petersburg. This is known as the window to the west. Once he gains access to that Baltic Sea, we are going to see where he begins construction. And this is a base for the Russian Navy, but it's also meant to be a city that when you visited, and notice this is kind of one of the most Western points, so the first points to get into Russia, he wanted it to be a European city, just like you were in Paris or London or Amsterdam. He wanted the architecture to be the same. He even brings in architects from Europe to do just that. The palace there is gorgeous. So you have all of these opportunities to impress people, kind of like Louis did with his Versailles, right? So Peter does create this. Now, as soon as you're outside of St. Petersburg, it looks like the regular Russia. But he wanted people to have that impression that all of Russia was really like this. Now, the problem with this is it was actually built upon a wetland, like a swamp, and it had to be drained by hand, truly by like a bucket brigade, if you've ever heard of that, where they take a bucket and they would pass it to the next person and you would grab the next one in a line. So they had to drain this by hand. Very time consuming, very costly, and back-breaking work. And it said so many of the peasants actually died from this that their bodies were just kind of left as they were building, and they kept just building the silt, the land up above it. And so it's said to be built upon blood and bone because of all of the peasants who lost their life in the creation of St. Petersburg. Now, Peter dies in 1725, and when he dies, we really have a new form of Russia. He really did create this new military might, this new navy might, this new idea of, a city, but really one that is out of kind of the older ages and moving into modernization. Now, in true Peter fashion, he died jumping in to save a sailor. But the water was frigid, of course, and so he ended up having complications of pneumonia afterwards, and he ended up losing his leg for saving that sailor. So, hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about Peter the Great. He is one which I think you'll find even more information that you'll find intriguing about him and his cruelty in your reading assignment.